Ooh, welcome to the Ringer NFL show. I'm Sheil Kapadia. What an opening day to the NFL playoffs. Rams barely avoid one of the biggest playoff upsets in recent history, beating the Panthers in Carolina, and then an epic Bears comeback. Or was it a Packers meltdown? We'll talk about both sides of it in the night game, but a great night game as well. These games, can you believe there are people out there who don't watch sports? I don't get it. How can you live like that? These were amazing games. We're going to talk about both of them with the Ringer's Diante Lee on today's show. Let's take a break. We come back with Diante. The Ringer NFL show is presented by FanDuel. FanDuel's got it all. Same game parlays, quick bets for jumping in live and your way so you can build the bet that fits your play. Plus, don't miss out on the NFL playoffs all month long. Download the FanDuel app or head to FanDuel.com/RingerNFL to get started. 21 plus and present in select states or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. All right, we are back here with Diante Lee. We're going to start with Packers Bears. But Diante, we were blessed with an amazing first day to the playoffs. We could have got 2 duds where we're searching for storylines. Instead, 2 amazing games. I want to start with the Bears because that comeback and that throw by Caleb Williams on 4th and 8, I was just, watching it live, you're marking it down. All right, it's a big moment. And then the way the game plays out, I was just thinking, and they're showing the crowd shots, and it's been 15 years since there's been a playoff victory for the Bears. Like, that is why you watch sports. That is why you pay for the merch and the tickets, and you're on the group chats with your friends, and at times you wonder, why do I spend so much time investing my emotional energy into this stupid thing that I have no control over? It's for moments in games like that, man. Bears fans will be telling their grandkids about that game, about that play, and the playoffs are about moments. And I thought that was Caleb Williams' moment. I mean, 283 yards passing in the second half. They're down 21-3. They look overmatched. Later, I'm going to read you some of my notes that I had down after the first half so you can laugh at them with me. But it's 27-16 with 6:36 left. And they're trying to mount the comeback, and he's rolling to his left, and he's falling down, and he somehow finds Rome Odunze, gives them life. They score a touchdown. They score the 2-point try. And then, of course, one more drive to take the lead and win the game, which, by the way, it's not like there wasn't adversity there. DJ Moore drops the ball. Their left tackle goes out of the game where you're going, are they really going to do this? Are they not going to do this? But I really think the big story, especially if you're a Bears fan, you're just like, man, I feel great about my quarterback. And when's the last time Bears fans were able to say that?
1,000%, right? It's not just the 15 years in between playoff wins. It's the amount of times that Chicago has come up short because they haven't had a talent like Caleb Williams under center, right? I can only imagine how cathartic that must have felt going through that fourth quarter, watching your quarterback pull some stuff I can only compare to Steph Curry when he's in a flow state, right? That throw was very much like some Steph Curry 38-foot falling, into the sideline, nothing but net type of 3-pointer, I think that for them, and you think about the way that the defense played in the first half, and you're like, oh my God, Dennis Allen seems like he has completely lost his grip on what we need to get done, from a coverage perspective and getting pressure on Jordan Love. You think about all the 4th down tries in the first half. I mean, I could not imagine a worse start for the first 3 quarters of this game than what we got out of Chicago. But to your point, Caleb Williams is able to find a way. He's able to make plays late in the game. I think his ability to extend, we've spent so much time for the last 2 years talking about how him holding onto the ball forever can be a limiting factor for him, how it's going to disjoint this offense now that Ben Johnson is here. And truth be told, they are not in the divisional round unless Caleb Williams is willing to hold on to the ball, make pass rushers miss, extend plays out on the sideline, try to push the ball downfield aggressively. He is 100% the thing that is changing the way that we are looking at Chicago as a franchise and why it is possible that this team can make a deep playoff run, and certainly why they were able to win tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned their defense because they kind of kept them in the game. It wasn't like the whole second half the Bears offense was cooking. I mean, they had 9 points going into the fourth quarter where they were driving. You never felt like they were just stuck and in a rut, like they couldn't move the football, but they were getting stopped in the red zone, or they were not converting on fourth down, or they would have a drop, or they would have a miscommunication. I mean, like you said, it just felt like everything was going against him. And you're right, he had to go hero mode. And that's been part of the Caleb Williams conversation from the draft process until now. Was like, does he do that too much? Does he not do it enough? Is he trying too much to be a pocket quarterback? Should he let his natural talent show? How's he being coached? What about his intangibles? The work. I mean, there's been like 400 different narratives written on this guy, and he's only in his second season. And so to put that out there where, again, if you're a Bears fan, or even if you're a Caleb Williams skeptic, at halftime, you might be going like, okay, these things I thought they're actually coming to fruition. And then for him to end it there. And I know they've been doing this type of thing all season long, but it's just totally different when it's the playoffs. This is how sports work. When the bright lights get brighter, when the moment gets bigger, those are the things we remember. We don't remember week 8 or week 9. And you're absolutely right. There were moments in this game where you thought, all right, nice call by Ben Johnson, but we don't even like that screen and go, the touchdown to DJ Moore. That's beautiful. He's wide open, but we don't even get to that point if it's not just, well, Caleb Williams really is kind of a one of one, just from a talent perspective.
Well, I mean, on a base level, they just won a playoff game that Green Bay choked away. There are Bears fans that'll be willing to hang the banner off of that alone. Okay? Again, when we're talking about catharsis in sports, I cannot imagine anything that feels better for a Bears fan than beating the Packers and having the Packers basically give this game away late in the fourth quarter. Right. And then it does come back to the way you win. It's on the shoulders of your quarterback. It's your defense holding up just enough in the third quarter and in the first half of the fourth quarter to be able to get you an opportunity, like you said, for those last 6 minutes for your quarterback to come through and get you over the hump. Honestly, I would say that basically since this team has kind of found itself offensively around mid-October, early November, this is the first time I think that they were thoroughly beaten up front. This is the first time I think that they had a rough game with the offensive line. I mean, they had nothing in the run game. There were rushers that were getting after Caleb Williams. He just did such a good job of evading them in obvious passing situations and extending plays. I was concerned, right? Because this is just not the style of play we've seen from Chicago over the second half of the season. So again, to be able to have an answer and to know that your answer is the player, right? It's not that Ben Johnson had to draw up a perfect play. It's not that they had to go to some very hyper-specific coverage beater, right? The fake bubble screen that turns into a touchdown, awesome call in that situation, really more of a discipline breakdown by Green Bay. But the fact that a lot of this was just, we're putting guys in spots past the sticks, and now it's on our superstar second-year quarterback to go make it happen. And the fact that he was able to do that in a high-leverage scenario, like you said, it's a great win, and now it does kind of alleviate some tension on Williams early in his career. On Ben Johnson, you get a proof of concept playoff win that really could have gone the other way based off of how things looked in the first half. And I think, again, to bounce out a divisional rival and a team that has had the level of quarterback play that Chicago has been coveting for the last decade plus, I mean, you just can't ask for anything better than that, I think, if you're a Bears fan.
On the other side of it, Diante, you alluded to the Green Bay Packers. Oh, my goodness. All right, let me be clear here. I think Matt LaFleur is a very good coach. If I were the Packers, I would not fire Matt LaFleur. I don't even think I would think about firing Matt LaFleur. Having said that, you always got to include the having said that takes you to a different place. Great phrase in podcasting. This is the type
that's one of those Brian Curtis specials. The kind of thing you'd hear on Pressbox,
That's right. That's right. We have to send that to our friend Brian Curtis. This is the type of nightmare that can cause an organization to make rash decisions and 100%. Can just haunt an entire fan base for an entire offseason. So we were joking before we came on, like, I hope we can wrap our head around all the things that happened in this game. So let me give you what I wrote down here for the Packers, Diante.
Okay.
7 second half possessions. 4 straight punts with 1 total first down. That was really the stretch of the game where you let the Bears still have hope, where you could have stepped on their throat, didn't do it. Overall, you score 1 touchdown, 1 missed field goal, and then you have the end of game. So 1 touchdown, no field goals on your final 7 possessions of the football game in the second half. It's not just that, however, because they used a timeout and then their offense comes out and they get a delay of game on 3rd and 10, like a huge moment in the game. 3rd and 10 turns into 3rd and 15. You don't get it. And then you miss a 44-yard field goal. Then on defense, the very next possession, I believe it was the second play, you waste another timeout. This is a game coming down to the end, and you just wasted. You used 2 timeouts, and you got a delay of game right there. And then, of course, the misses. Brandon McManus, 2 missed field goals, including the 44-yarder, the one before the half, and then the missed extra point, which was huge because if they only needed a field goal at the end, well, they drove into field goal range. They could have at least attempted a field goal and forced overtime. So you add all those things up, and I understand if you're someone who's just like, LaFleur doesn't have it. He's great in the regular season. He's a great offensive schemer, but this seems to happen to them year after year after year. They lose 4 straight to end the season. I know the last game didn't really matter, but then they blow a 21-3 lead at the Bears, your rival, the coach who has become your rival. How do you digest this? How do you size this up? If you have a Packers fan in your life who's calling you up, Diante, saying, tell me what I should think about this, what do you tell them after a game like this?
Sheil, for me, honestly, I don't know if I have anything rational to say in response to a Packers fan who's calling me to asking, for guidance in this moment, right? Asking for an easy way to kind of cope with and rationalize this loss. And that's not to say that because you lose in an embarrassing fashion. It's not to say because you lose to a division rival. It's not to say that because you blow a multi-score second half lead that you have to burn the whole thing down. But I do think if you're a Packers fan, this is not necessarily just a prisoner of the moment thing. I think that this is something we can zoom out and look at over Matt LaFleur's tenure because he's been here for a little while. Your 3 playoff wins under LaFleur was against an awful Cowboys defense, which was basically like the very end of the Dan Quinn stint as a defensive coordinator in Dallas. You have the end of the Goff era in 2020 against the Rams. And you basically have the end of the Russell Wilson era in 2019 against the Seahawks, right? That's not to say that those playoff wins don't count. But I do think if you're just looking at the way that this team played in the second half, it was just kind of a great representation of some of the things that have held this team up the season. We pointed it out early in the year, right? They kind of only have 2 modes of running the ball. It's either going for a big one because you get a light box and everything is set up perfectly, or it's going for nothing. You have to be looking at the game that Jordan Love just had and saying, we can't lose that game. Yeah. If we get that version of Jordan Love in a postseason game on the road, we absolutely have to win it. That cannot go to waste. So it doesn't mean that Matt LaFleur is not a good coach. It doesn't mean that I think he should lose his job. But if you are a front office executive that's sitting with their CEO, right, over this weekend, going into next week, and you're saying, hey, man, we might lose Jeff Hafley now to be a head coach elsewhere. We have a head coach who has not been able to get us to where we want to go with this organization. Should we consider all of our options here? I wouldn't be mad at that. If they ultimately landed on keeping Matt LaFleur for another year and maybe the eyes are on him in a way that's even greater than what it is right now, I would totally understand that. And if they decided to go in a different direction, obviously contingent on who they got next, I would understand that as well. I do think it's fair to ask a question of a head coach that's had an MVP in Aaron Rodgers at the end of his prime and now has one of the rising stars, Jordan Love, who did not fade in this postseason, who did not have major turnover problems in this game or major sack problems in this game. It is fair to ask why the head coach hasn't quite gotten over the hump.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Pro Football Reference page, and it's we went from, this is incredible. He's going from Rodgers to Love, and they're still a competitive team. This is one of the best coaching jobs in the NFL. But now we've had 3 years of that, and they've had 1 playoff win in 3 years. So at some point, you have to stop. You stop giving credit for that. And,
right.
and again, even those years with Rodgers, when they were amazing, and I know I don't want to judge stuff by 1 game. They got to the conference championship game. It's not like he has that goodwill built up, basically. If
right.
you got to the Super Bowl or obviously won the Super Bowl in one of those Rodgers years, then you're saying, everybody settle down. This guy has done it. But now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years without getting out of the divisional round. And again, 1 playoff win in the last 4 years. Again, if I'm in Green Bay, and I'm just part of the decision-making process, and they're saying, Sheil, what do you think? I'm saying, hey, we lost Micah Parsons. Okay, this was our big move. Matt LaFleur, listen, we can work with him on some of this stuff that's happening at the end of games. He is still a very good coach. He's still a very good offensive coach. We are the likelihood of us getting someone better than him versus him improving and growing as a head coach. I would rather keep him. That is absolutely my stance right now. But you're right. Now you kind of look at going into next year, it does sort of feel like there would be some pressure where if this were to happen again next year and they don't get out of the first round, or even worse, they don't make the playoffs or whatever, that's when I think those conversations really get heated. But you know what? After the Harbaugh thing, and it is a weird year. And I do think some of these coaches that haven't gotten over the hump, like, it wouldn't totally shock me if we were texting you, Diante, and hey, Diante, can you jump on emergency pod? Matt LaFleur got fired. That wouldn't totally shock me. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but I do understand the questions here. All right, before we go to break, Diante, I'm going to read you my notes from the first half here, okay?
Please.
Because I'm team content, and I'm all right embarrassing myself. So here's what I had written down. I'm getting ready. I'm like, all right, let me get some notes down for the pod. Ben Johnson flop? ?
Oh my gosh.
Trick plays not working. Execution off. Bad snap on 4th down. Caleb Williams interception. Luther Burden confused. All the gimmicky stuff is getting stuffed. 21-6 in the third. 4th and 1 in the red zone. He goes play action. And I got LaFleur, Cook, Dennis Allen just killing their man coverage. And then I got LaFleur out coaching Ben Johnson. Coaching is getting your players to execute. The talk of LaFleur coaching for his job was absurd. And then I have LaFleur masterclass equivalent of stuffing Ben Johnson into a locker. See why I don't post a lot during games, Deontay?
Never tweet, man. Never tweet before
Just
the end of the game.
End and then
100%.
No,
100%.
You're not a coward. I'm a coward, so I keep those to myself.
But I'm 100% with you. The only I didn't jump in on this one because I had a feeling, given the way that their first few matchups this season played out, that we probably weren't at the end of it with how poorly things went in the first half. But I had a very similar thought to you. Like, hey, man, the play calls themselves are fine, Ben Johnson.
All right, let's take a break. We come back. We get to the other game, Rams versus Panthers. All right, we are back here on the Ringer NFL show. All right, let me start with the Rams. So this was also a fantastic game. Rams-Panthers. I mean, there was a time in the fourth quarter where I'm going, are the Panthers actually going to pull this off? It's this weird NFL season. And guess what? Maybe the favorite will lose in the wild card round as 10.5-point favorites. But let's start with the Rams aspect of this, because I'm going to give the caveat that NFL history is littered with Super Bowl champions who didn't look great in the wild card round. It's just one game. Rams can still do this. And that was a great last drive by Matthew Stafford, the touchdown by Colby Parkinson. But I got to say, I can't help but feel like the team we're watching right now is just different than the team we were watching a month ago. Since that 9-minute mark in the fourth quarter of that Seahawks game, they lose that game to the Seahawks. They lose to the Falcons on Monday night, where they get outplayed for most of that game. They beat the Cardinals, but even in that game that no one was paying attention to, they're trailing late in the third quarter in that game against Jacoby Brissett. And then in this game, as 10.5-point favorites, I do feel like it was a coin flip game. I don't feel like it was fluky. I mean, the Panthers had 2 turnovers in this game, and I'm watching it going, I know the numbers on the Rams defense are good. I don't trust their defense. I don't trust their secondary. Now Matthew Stafford's dealing with a finger injury, and I'm just not sure about this team. Again, I know they can still do it, but if you're just asking for what I feel inside, Diante, I feel differently about them than I did a month ago when we were talking about the Rams.
I mean, we're coming down the stretch of this game, and I picked the Rams to win the Super Bowl, right? When we did all our staff picks for the site. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, how foolish of me to have seen a very obvious flaw with this team, being the back seven of this defense, knowing how well Seattle moved the ball against them when they played on that Thursday night game, knowing how well Detroit moved the ball against them when they had played the week prior. And I'm just sitting there looking at myself like, I dismissed that for no good reason, because I'm typically pretty consistent in teams that have these fatal flaws, these potential fatal flaws rarely end up being the teams that play like champions. And that's exactly what it looked like down the stretch of this game. I would say the moment that this offense kind of lost its rhythm in the second quarter, right? Second into like the first half of the third quarter-ish, it definitely looked like they weren't the same machine in the passing game that we had expected them to be. Certainly weren't playing as well as they had to open the game. And I was like, oh, this is perfect for the Panthers. They've got just enough window to be able to get out in front and maybe hold Los Angeles off. I think that ultimately the reason why they escaped with this comes back to the fact that they don't have to get explosives in the run game to be effective, right? it's not that they were just mashing Carolina up front on a down-to-down basis, but they were getting 4.5 here, another 6 yards there. They were turning second and shorts in the first and 10s. They were turning third and shorts in the first and 10s. And that ended up alleviating a lot of the pressure that I felt like Matthew Stafford was under when that offense went cold. I do think that we have to have a conversation for all the success of this offense that they have not been a good third down offense basically since about the midway point of this season. You add that with a vulnerable defense, and we are probably talking about a team that has a little bit more tenuous relationship to their ability to contend than what we were talking about, before the holiday season. I think that's a fair way to look at them. And it's also entirely possible that next weekend they're going to be tearing up and down the field because that's just how dangerous this offense can be. And this might be a moot point, right? Depending on their matchup. So I just don't know necessarily how to square that because I don't feel worse about them as contenders, but I think that we have to acknowledge that this is not the same just absolute machine that we thought we were getting about the midway point in the season.
Yeah, you mentioned the passing game kind of slowing down there and the third down stuff. This was based on dropback success rate, a 19th percentile game by Matthew Stafford. It was his worst success rate in any game over the last 2 seasons, which when I looked at those numbers, I go, man, they still had 400 yards. And, I know it wasn't perfect in the middle of that game, but I didn't think it was going to be that bad. But that kind of speaks to what you're saying. They got the explosives in the passing game, and it just feels like, all right, push the, hey, Puka Nacua 25-yard completion button when you need something. And they're able to do that. But overall, and again, I want to give the Panthers defense credit. I mean, Mike Jackson and J.C. Horn on the outside, like they were playing really well. And it was kind of just surprising the tight windows Matthew Stafford had to throw to, but still, it's not a great Panthers defense. They don't have much of a pass rush generally. And for the Rams to look like that, again, it's one game, to your point. Next week, they could score 40 and we could say Matthew Stafford looks incredible, but at least on my radar a little bit as we look ahead to the divisional round. And then the Panthers, it's like, if you're a Panthers fan, you're first of all, I thought both crowds today were awesome. Like the Panthers crowd was really good. You could tell it's like they're like happy to have a playoff game. And of course, that Bears crowd was incredible. But if you're a Panthers fan, you're probably like, it's all good. We kind of snuck in. At least we didn't embarrass ourselves. We took them to the end. At the same time, they were kind of right there, Diante, late in the fourth quarter. And the one thing I wonder about when they're reviewing this game and they're saying, we have a little regret here. I thought that last Rams drive that the Panthers got a little conservative in their defensive approach, where I thought Ejiro Evero was doing a fantastic job all game. They're kind of going out of character. They're blitzing. They're running stunts up front. They were really finding ways to affect Matthew Stafford in the pocket, like you were saying. And then I don't know if it was because J.C. Horn came out of the game with the injury or whether it was just like, hey, it's late in the game. We don't want to give up a big play. I think if they had that to do over again, they would probably love to be a little bit more aggressive, because even if you get burned there in that spot, you're giving your offense the ball back with more time, with a chance to maybe win the game. Whereas the way it went, they were just kind of playing soft and it was like cover 3 and it was just completion until that Colby Parkinson touchdown catch, which was incredible. But yeah, I think that's the one thing I look at it from the Panthers perspective, where if you say, how could this have actually been different? I think that last defensive drive is what I point to.
I think, and you saw that in the results of those plays, right? It seemed like the second that they softened up in the fourth quarter, you get Matthew Stafford over the middle of the field and he's just peppering them. Whether it's checkdowns, whether it's those deep in cuts to Puka Nacua, whether it's that throw to Colby Parkinson, which is ultimately on the sideline, right? Because you finally get them in that one-on-one, man-to-man type of matchup that they had been hunting for. And I think that it kind of speaks to Ejiro Evero maybe waiting a little too long, and you get caught in a situation where your back is against the wall, and now you give this offense the look that they are looking for exactly. But I do think overall, again, once you zoom out from the disappointment of not being able to win this game, I think that you wanted to evaluate the Panthers on a few different levels. A, they had spent a lot of money to address this defense. I think if you look at the way that this defense played down the stretch of the year, you should be really, really pleased. And that money was pretty well spent, I would say, especially in the secondary. The Mike Jackson, J.C. Horn tandem, I didn't come into the season thinking that was going to be one of my favorites to watch in the league. I think on another end, you would like to have seen what Dave Canales could do in a game like this. And to me, like, he was cooking. after the first quarter. First quarter was pretty rough. Some of that is on Bryce Young, but I think you saw a lot of what made him so appealing leaving Tampa Bay. Maybe, and this is probably where you're most hung up if you're thinking about Carolina.
I think if you're a Panthers fan, you're pretty just excited that, man, you played the Rams all the way down to the wire. You had a chance to win it. This was Bryce Young's highest success rate in a game this season, which I think speaks to what you were saying with Canales and also how he did get hot there in the second half. So you know what? That Puka Nacua breakup on the potential Matthew Stafford interception, I was looking back at my notes. That was one of the biggest plays of the game, Diante. It's 24-20 Panthers in the fourth quarter. And that's an interception. Like it's in, I forget which safety, I think it might have been Nick Scott. It's in his hands. And Nacua like comes back and breaks it up like a DB. You know, you must have been proud. Get that hand in between their hands and break it up. And Rams score a touchdown on that possession. Without that play, I mean, who knows how this thing ends here. So there's always those moments in a playoff game. There's always those moments in a Super Bowl run. But last thing I wanted to ask you, because I forgot to ask you earlier, we got to finish on this. The Ben Johnson, Matt LaFleur handshake. Did you see this at the end of the game?
I missed this.
Oh my God.
Did we get fireworks?
Oh, this was probably the quickest handshake. I mean, Ben Johnson's going crazy on the sideline at the end. Like he fell to the ground. I think it was him and Rome Odunze were celebrating. His like hat fell off. And then he's like sprinting to midfield, but he cannot contain his excitement. And he is, as soon as the hands touched, bam, he was gone back to celebrating. And again,
I see it now.
Yeah, it's like LaFleur would look like he was going to do like a respectable, like I am not trying to make something out of this. Ben Johnson is a great villain, Diante. We need villains in the NFL, and he is up to the challenge. I love it.
Look, I think he's got a little bit of Sean Payton in him, right? Like,
yes.
I think that there's like, I know how I'm supposed to be when the cameras are on me, but I just cannot hold
I can't help
right?
it.
There's like that Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, like it is just oozing out of my body. I only know one speed. I only know one way to be. And now that I see this handshake, I can tell. I think he probably made the wisest decision possible, which is let me get out of his way, because the longer I look at him, the more I'm going to want to say.
Who knows what I'm going to say? He doesn't trust himself. Yeah,
exactly. Let me get back to the locker room, and before they show the post game speech, I can let all that energy out. I think that probably was in their best interest.
That's right. It's like if you have the friend who maybe drank too much, but they know when it's time to, they're like, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go get a glass of water and go to bed.
Yes.
So that's kind of what Ben Johnson did here. So maybe, maturity. Good job by Ben Johnson there. All right. 2 incredible games to start the playoffs. Thank you to Diante Lee for joining me. Thank you to Christopher Sutton for producing, Stefano Sanchez on video, Kiera Givens on social, and additional production supervision by Conor Nevins and Arjuna Ramgopowell. I'm Sheil Kapadia. We will be back after the Sunday games on the Ringer NFL Show. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.